if we can see that the target keeps moving, why do we still chase it? If we can notice the pressure, why does it still pull us forward? I don't think it's weakness, personally. I think it's just human nature. Welcome back to the Loose Threads and Stitches podcast. I am Kristen with ICStarsQuilting.com. This episode is a continuation of the Enough chapter. It is our limited series where we're exploring growth, identity, and the quiet hum of more in modern life. I have really enjoyed this podcast so far. I hope that you have enjoyed this kind of slightly deeper look into the way the creative mind works. And so far we've talked about the atmosphere of improvement. We've talked about how enough can feel like a constant moving target. And today I want to gently explore a little bit deeper. I want to explore something underneath all of that, okay? I want to talk about why we respond to it in the first place, okay? Again, not critically, just curiously. And if you have been enjoying this podcast, please do me a favor, put it down in the comments so that I know that you're enjoying this. And if you have other questions or other thoughts on any of these topics, please let me know. I love reading your comments, and I love talking with other quilters in this world. It is truly one of my greatest joys. So yeah, if this series has been resonating with you, make sure that you're following my YouTube channel. Make sure that you go and catch up on the other episodes if you're just tuning in right now. And it's really helpful if you share this podcast with a friend. It's always very much appreciated, as well as leaving a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Okay, let's dive into it. Let's talk about why we chase what keeps moving. Okay, that moving target that we talked about. Humans are wired for progress. Okay, that's not a flaw. That's survival. And that's good. Okay, for most of human history, noticing what could be improved meant staying safe. It meant better shelter. It meant better tools. It meant better strategy. Scanning for the what's next helped us adapt as a species. So when something in our environment highlights possibility, our brains don't experience that as pressure. They're experiencing it as an opportunity. An opportunity often feels really energizing to our bodies. Belonging feels important, and relevance feels safe. So when we see a higher standard, something inside us leans towards it. That leaning isn't weakness, it's hardwiring in our bodies. So there's something very normal that happens once we reach a goal. What once felt exciting becomes familiar. What once felt like a win becomes our new baseline. You reorganize the room and it feels amazing for like a week. And then it's just the way the room is right now, right? That's not like being ungrateful at all. It's not recognizing the gratitude that you have. That's adaptation, okay? That's totally normal feeling. Our brains are meant to recalibrate quickly, which means satisfaction often fades faster than we expect it to. And when satisfaction fades, the mind tends to scan forward again. There's something motivating about the chase and the hunt for new and exciting things, right? I myself, I love that feeling of walking into a fabric store and finding a new designer that I didn't know existed, but I am obsessed with everything that they've created, right? Like that is so freeing to see that something out there was created with absolutely everything that I love. That can easily be a high that you chase quite often, and you love that feeling. It's great. I totally encourage you to get excited about all the little things in your life, right? And that chase can kind of be just imagining the next version of yourself, imagining your next project and picturing improvement in your skills. Sometimes the momentum feels better than the actual arrival. All right. I love shopping for fabric. That's my favorite part. Okay. I love the imagining and the creating of a quilt more than I love putting the binding on that sucker, right? Like, you probably understand that too. Like, there is something very satisfying about the binding, but in terms of process, I love the shopping part. I love the pulling together of the fabrics. I love the imagination of it better than the final steps of it. And kind of back to what we were talking about today is if the target moves constantly, the anticipation resets. So we keep moving too. It's not because we're broken, but because we are built to move. Okay. Now, layer on top of that the pace that we talked about last week. Benchmarks shifting very, very quickly. Progress becoming visible. Milestones absolutely everywhere, and our natural wiring meets a very, 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 very fast moving environment in the world that we live in today, and suddenly the leaning forward into the next phase, into the next exciting thing, feels constant, even when we are tired as a species. Okay, it's as a person rather than a species. I've noticed this in myself in small ways, like every single day ways. Okay, I notice that I'm constantly living on the very, very edge of what's coming next. Okay, you finish something, and before you've even sat with it being done, right, and enjoyed it, your mind says, how could I have made this better? How could I refine this? Or what's the next step? What am I going to do next? What am I going to learn next? What else is out there that I can throw myself into? Okay. And that voice doesn't have to sound like dramatic, even though it's often quite dramatic in my head. Okay. But it's normal for your body to want that. Okay. It's almost like a responsibility to want to improve, to want to work on something next, to constantly be moving, right? But even if it's normal, it doesn't always mean that it's necessary part of life, okay? Sometimes it's just momentum and biology doing what momentum and biology does, all right? Keeping us wanting to move forward. This is one of the reasons that I love getting into this, and I love learning about this, and I really love sharing this with you too, is I love making things with clear edges on them, okay? When I quilt, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. The project doesn't evolve into something else halfway through. All right. I have a clear vision of what I'm making from the very beginning, even if I don't know how to do all the steps in the middle, right? The project has a boundary, and when it's complete, I can hold it. That feeling of holding something, being finished, it is very different from scrolling past endless upgrades, okay? It reminds me that completion exists, and that arrival, that finishing something is totally possible. So if you've ever found yourself thinking like, why can't I just be satisfied? Like, why is this just never enough? Maybe that question that you're asking yourself is too harsh. I won't say that again, okay? Maybe that question is too harsh, and I am a big fan of being gentle with yourself, but I want to go to, like, maybe the better question is, what am I responding to right now? Is your body responding to wiring, adaptation, momentum, pace, expectations that are not your own being put on yourself? Understanding is what softens the edge of those really harsh emotions. And I believe that when we understand why we lean forward into wanting more and wanting to progress further, we're going to gain that ability to pause. And when you pause, that creates choice, right? It creates choice. Just because we're wired to chase doesn't mean that you are required to chase everything. And you've probably felt this when you've walked into a quilt shop before and you're like, wow, they have fabric and they have bag making patterns and they have like toolkit patterns and they have this pattern and like quilt coats and like, I mean, yes, like the world is your oyster, okay? You could do anything you want, but you are not required to chase everything. And you are totally like able to say, no, I'm not going to touch bags right now. Like that's maybe later on. All right. You don't have to say no forever. I personally never say never because I've learned many times that comes back and bites me. I will absolutely get really overconfident in my own skills and want to go back and do something over and over again that I may not be totally equipped to do, but you know, that's just me, okay? What I'm trying to get at here is you are allowed to notice the pull that you feel towards like, wouldn't it be so cool if I made my own luggage, like travel set, right? And you are allowed to grow, but you are also allowed to decide when you feel good, when you feel finished, okay, you're allowed to make that decision and just like, don't let the expectations of others affect how you feel about yourself, okay? So next week, we are going to talk about overload and the difference between dysfunction and capacity. It's gonna be fun. I promise it's gonna be fun. It's a really good one. So until then, I'm gonna leave you with this thought. Maybe restlessness isn't a flaw. Okay, think about that. Maybe it might just be being a human. So sit with that. Let me know what you think. I have enjoyed today. I've enjoyed these thoughts, sharing them with you, and I can't wait to dig more into this series with you and share more of the thoughts that I have. This is going to be fun. All right. It's going to be learning, thinking about things. If you have thoughts that you want to share with me, make sure you leave them down in the comments. I love to hear from you. Okay. So I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Loose Threads and Stitches podcast. I'm Kristen with IC Stars Quilting, and I will see you next time. Bye.